I hope you're ready for story time because I've got 3 different times that I got lost in a foreign country to tell you about. So let me just first start off by saying that I know I was not truly lost in any of these times, but I was definitely uncomfortable and I needed to figure out where I was going, what I was doing, and the things that were happening, like all just made me feel like I was like totally lost. The first time I ever went abroad without my family, I went on a trip to Greece with some high school friends. And there was one girl, one of my best friends was with me, there was a younger guy, and then there was some other guys in our class, and then most of them were other seniors or juniors, and I was a sophomore. So we all went to Greece and it was an incredible trip. We did all these amazing outings. And one day, when we were on the subway, I think we were going somewhere in Athens. So all of our class, besides us 3, had gone on that subway, and we couldn't get on because there wasn't enough space and we didn't have enough time, and so we were just standing there like, oh my god. So basically it wasn't like I was lost, but it was like the first time I'd ever truly been alone in a foreign country. And I wasn't truly alone because I was with these 2 guys. We were with my teachers and they like, let's get off at the next stop so that when they get on, they'll get off at the next stop with us so that we can all get together and get back on. And so that was really scary at first, and I was more like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? I wasn't like freaking out, because in the last story I was definitely freaking out. And so the next time, it was actually one of my favorite memories ever of my entire life. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I actually wrote an essay about it. It's called Parisian Shoes That Don't Fit, and I won an award for that. So I was studying abroad in Switzerland in 2013, and we took a lot of trips out of Switzerland because it was all about hospitality, and we visited a lot of different hotels. And we also went to a winery in Beaune, France. And it was like this beautiful old town with all these stone buildings. We visited this like 300-year-old winery, and it had barrels that were like all the way to the ceiling, and all of the whole walls were like lined with wine bottles, and it was just like the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And we had a wine tasting there, and they had some wines that were like €7 up to like €100, and I definitely bought a couple bottles. I shared one with my foreign exchange student Clotilde, and she actually stayed with me when I was in high school here in America, and then I visited her in France when I was 17, and then I came back to visit her again when she was in college. We were both in college at that time, and she was going to this really fancy scientific college in a kind of like a suburb off of Paris. It's about 45 minutes by the RER, I can't say it. She used to laugh at me every time because I can never say RER in French. And so basically I was with her, like she was so busy. Like she had classes all day, and then she had to work, and then she also had to go to driving lessons because in France it's really complicated to get your driver's license. And it involves doing a lot of like school and like classes and stuff like that. She was busy a lot of the time that I was with her, but she ended up having a little soiree for me, and her friends were there, and it was really fun. And it was actually the night of this, it was the night that this happened. After having such an amazing day, it was so wonderful to be with all her friends, and we went to this little park, and one of them brought their little, we went to this little park, and one of them brought a guitar, and we had a little dessert, and we were looking at the stars, and it was seriously like, I've written about it, I've written stories about it, and I just loved it. It was so, it's like one of my favorite memories. And so that day, I was basically, I had nothing to do, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Paris. I'm just going to go to Paris. And that is the only time I've ever truly been alone in a foreign country, is that time. So I took the RER for about 45 minutes, and then I got onto like the concentrated subway in Paris. And I'm not sure exactly where I got off. I think I got off at the wrong stop, because at this point I was kind of lost, but I figured I would just find the Seine, because the Seine River flows to the center of Paris, and if you walk along the Seine, which is what I wanted to do, you'd basically see everything that you wanted to see. And that is what I wrote. I wrote that in my essay as well. And so I knew I had to find the Seine. And so I ended up going through this sort of touristy area with a lot of different cafes and little touristy shops with trinkets and stuff. And I must have looked very European because I got stopped several times asking for directions by Americans. And once they realized that I could speak English, they were like so relieved. It was so funny. And I guess I just I don't really, when I don't know where I'm going, I'm kind of a little more determined. So I just look like I know where I'm going. And so people assume that I know what I'm doing. I don't know. And so I just remember that, and that was really fun. And I actually took a photo of that moment that I was just feeling like I was just having such a great day, and I can show you a picture of this. I was on Rue de Saint-Séverin. I was walking through here. I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm not really sure where I'm going, and I didn't have a map, and I didn't have anywhere to find where I was going. And so I just kept walking. In Paris, they have little elevators that go down into the subway from random places that don't have a big enough like whole area to get on and off. And so I was kind of getting nervous, so I got on that and went back down. Eventually I realized that I would be going further away from where I wanted to be, so I went back up, and then I walked maybe like 30 steps out into like that. I was going through this little alleyway, and there was 2 buildings on either side of me, and I was just walking out. I turned this way to the left, and I see the Seine, I see all the buildings, the bridges, the people. I'm like, okay, I'm here, I'm at the Seine, you know, okay. Then I turn to the right, and there she is, Notre Dame. And at this point, I was freaking out because I knew exactly where I was the whole time. I just didn't fully know where in relation to the Notre Dame I was. And I was just literally feeling on top of the world at that moment. And I was so excited. I took a picture of myself. I didn't actually go into the Notre Dame because I've been in there before. And I think they were doing some renovations because there was this like huge scaffolding thing. And there was a huge line. And so I didn't go in, but I really wanted to, and I wanted to just like bask in like the presence of La Notre Dame. And I really wish that I had gone to the Shakespeare store, which is right next door. I actually went there the first time I went to Paris with Clotilde in 2008. Saw the Pont des Arts Bridge, I saw Lover's Lock Bridge, the Pont Neuf, and I didn't put a lock on there for me and Mike because I wasn't with Mike. I figured we would go to Paris together eventually, so I didn't want to just put one on there alone, but I kind of wish I had. I don't know. So I wanted to go to Musée d'Orsay, which is the Impressionist museum with Monet and Renoir and Degas. And you know, I had already been to the Louvre the first time I had been there, and I saw the Mona Lisa and Venus de Milo and like all these amazing like Renaissance floor to ceiling tapestries and stuff. And so I love museums. Whenever I go to Europe, I always go to a ton of museums. I was probably there for like 3 hours. I saw some of my favorite paintings there. It was, I saw La Danse en la Campagne, which is Dance in the Countryside by Renoir, which is also the painting that Lorelai is in Gilmore Girls. And I went on this deck, which is overlooking Paris, and I took some amazing pictures, and it was such a wonderful day. Freaking out, can't even begin to describe what happened on our first trip out of Switzerland. And this was when we went to Brussels in Belgium. And this was the first time we had ever left the country without a chaperone. I mean, we were all at least 20 to 24. We didn't really need a chaperone with us, but we didn't know where we were going. We didn't have the right currency because Switzerland uses the Swiss franc and Belgium uses the euro. So we had no money. We didn't know we were staying. And we had just booked a hostel online. We didn't know where it was, and so we had to find it. We basically spent an hour and a half walking around Brussels at night with our huge tourist backpacks on, like a huge sign like, come get me, I've got money in my fanny pack sort of thing. And so it was so stressful, and it turns out that we never would have made it to where we were going because I finally was like, we need to get a cab, like we can't do this, like we have to figure out where the fuck we're going. And so when we got to the place where it said we were supposed to go, apparently it was a hostel owned by the hotel, but the hostel was in a totally different location because the hotel was like really fancy, and we were like, this isn't what we paid for, what are you talking about? It was actually in a really amazing location. It was right off of the Grand Place in Brussels, where they used to have like their parliament, or maybe I don't know if they have parliament now, but they have like all their huge governmental meetings in this building, and they have all these amazing festivals in there. Once we actually figured out what we were doing and where we were going, it was amazing. But that like 2 hour period where everyone was like fighting and we couldn't figure out what we were doing, and It was just so stressful and so, oh my god, it was just like one of the worst experiences. And so that was really hard because I had no idea where we were going. It was like pitch black. It was like 10 o'clock at night. But I had such an amazing time when I was in Europe. I could probably tell you 100 more stories about times I've gone abroad or things I did or anything. So if you really like this video, let me know and I can do a little more story time for you, okay? Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.